Hello again, Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition. We have today a special guest. I say that every single week. I say that every month because I think that everybody's special. But this gentleman is very special to me. We've been friends a lot of years, and it's been a very valuable and worthwhile friendship. So thank you for that. I've got Lance Shay. Say hello.
Hello.
Okay, we're glad to have you. So the short version is here. You and I'll give a little backstory so people understand the context. First of all, Lance is wearing glasses. I am not. I realize it's the bald, bearded man show, and we're okay with that. So that said, we were having a conversation the other day, and Lance mentioned to me that he happened across something that all of us probably will see in our time driving around, traversing the countryside, and it made him stop and think about how prepared he was, or maybe he wasn't, and that led into a really great conversation and some worthwhile thoughts. So I don't want to spoil it. Do you want to lay that out for us, Lance, on what you experienced and what we might be thinking about so we can be better prepared?
Yes. So this summer, end of July, I was driving back from my place in southern Iowa, and I was at a stop sign and waiting for traffic to go down the highway in front of me. A truck started turning, and a motorcycle who was coming up behind the truck decided to pass on the left-hand side. And the motorcycle was going pretty fast. The kid who was driving it put the bike down. There were two axles on the trailer. He actually went under both of those with his motorcycle and hit the back of the truck, messed up the back bumper on the truck. The receiver hitch actually went over his helmet. I found out a couple days later when I was talking to his mom that it had actually cracked the motorcycle helmet in half. My wife and I, who were heading home, were the first people there. And I pretty much had an immediate adrenaline rush where, what is it that I need to do next? Now, I'm a person who I try to be prepared for when bad things happen. And I have a Stop the Bleed kit, has things like SAM splint in it, just basically general things that will help out in accidents. And I got out of the car thinking, out of the truck thinking that it was going to be really bad. Fortunately, it wasn't. The thing that I took away from it, though, was with the casualty care class I'd taken in the past, with a couple of Stop the Bleeding refreshers, with even being the first person at an accident a couple times over the course of the last handful of years, I thought that I was going to be more clear in my head. I was aware that controlling my breathing would slow me down, make me think more clearly. I thought that I would be more prepared to handle the stress that was in front of me. What I found was, even with that, it was very difficult to think about what I should be doing first, second, third, as I assessed the what had just unfolded in front of me, and how exactly I should approach this kid. The materials in my bag, while they're nice to have, I realized very quickly, well, after the fact, I guess, that it's nice to have this material to stop bleeding, but to have some kind of guide that I could have focused on that would have made it so, okay, the first thing I want to look at is there massive hemorrhaging? Is there massive bleeding? Are the airways clear? Just something where I could not have to come up with it on my own under duress.
Right.
And at that point in time, I started thinking it'd be really good to have a laminated card that I just put in with my kit, that this will help bring a little bit of clarity to the situation. And if it God forbid, happens in the future.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So you started down through some of the acronym. They call it, what is it, March? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've been through some of these classes. I've been through some. IFC, I think it was a year ago in April, offered a free one over in Newton. We had 172 students that came and were part of that, so they could have some introduction into, situational awareness, some basic self-defense, and also some what would you call it? Some first responder, just a primer, if you will. And so those are some of the things that were discussed. Now, it's easy to sit there in one of those classes and take the acronym March in, and it makes sense. And it's another, as you say, even with mental preparedness classes and the kit. I mean, you spoke about bleeding control and what that may look like. Even with that kit, you've got to actually do it. You've got to recognize the things before you and which come first in which order and what you need to do. And in cases like you're talking about, and some of these things where the accidents are really ugly, it sounded to me like when you and I spoke that this young man was ultimately and not in too bad a shape at all, because it sounded really ugly when you started relaying that story over. But a lot of these cases, seconds make the difference on whether folks can be spared or not, especially if they're really heavily bleeding. So do you have suggestions or things that we should be thinking about based on what you just experienced?
I think that the biggest thing to be aware of is that you are going to not do as well as you think you are going to do. You will even be aware that you are not able to think clearly as you're not thinking clearly. And if you are reflecting back, or if you are thinking, well, I know if I control my breathing, this is going to help. That still takes time. That still takes clarity. And sometimes it's easier just to have something to tell you what it is that you need to do next.
Well, you were kind enough to what, did you already have that postcard or that laminated card and you sent that to me, or did you get it somewhere?
I came home and bought it on Amazon.
Okay.
So,
all right. I don't have it in front of me. Lance was kind enough to obviously to procure and send to me a laminated card with these instructions. And so I think that it might be worth doing to get something like that. Punch a hole in it, put it with a ring on your bleeding control kit on the inside so it doesn't get tore off. Maybe on the inside of your bug out bag or your contingency kit or whatever you're going to call it, and have it so that you can walk through those things legibly and easily. Laminated, whatever else is good, so it doesn't get tore up. I mean, a piece of paper inside of a bag, I mean, come on, that's not going to last. If you've got children, they'll wipe their nose with it. It'll be buried in French fry salt. You name it, it'll get that way eventually. So a laminated card is wise. Now, one thing, and I'm not able to commit to people on this video, this right now, but I think that something that I'm going to pitch to IFC is they either get some of these cards and have them prepared for people or be ready to send them out. I wonder if it might be something nice to laminate as a postcard possibly and drop them in the mail to members or whatever else, so they could put them with their vehicles or whatever else, their kit. But having the mental preparation and the how would I say this, Lance? The mental prep and the willingness to come to the aid of a stranger is step one. And step two is being able to actually do it. So, and walk through those steps. So a guide like this might make all the difference. I'm really glad we talked about it.
Tools are nice to have, but a way to use them efficiently when you need to use them is probably just as important, if not more important.
Agreed. I suppose that's right. I mean, you can have I made this analogy when I was turning wrenches for a living. You can have a big shiny toolbox full of tools, and if you don't know how to use them, or you can't, then I guess they're irrelevant, aren't they?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We didn't want to burn up a lot of time tonight. Thank you for that. Are there any parting words or any parting wisdom that you'd like to bestow us?
Well, I really appreciate everything that IFC has done for both gun rights in Iowa and for opportunities like that Stop the Bleed training that you guys had out in Newton. That was definitely time that was well spent. So, thank you.
Thank you. You've been to quite a few of these classes over the years in different places, different states. Should we be doing that again? Do you think it was worthwhile that people should come to it again, or get new folks in the class, or is there a saturation for things like that, or what do you think?
I believe that it had a lot of value. I also try to make it so that my refresher courses or my exposure to material like this is something that I keep on going, so that it's not a class that I take 5 years ago and then I don't think about it, and then when I need it, well, then it's already lost to time. So yeah. I believe that there's a lot of value in that. And please don't mistake, I am not a person who spends as much time as I should preparing for things like this. I'm just a regular guy who, I'm just like every other person out there. It's just driving along on the road.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it makes me, it should make us all stop and think about what we might be prepared for and what difference that we can make in other people's lives. I mean, I never gave it a lot of thought about what I would do in case of flooding or anything like that, because I live in an area, Iowa, that's on the top of a big hill in a hilly area, and floods aren't anything that I really think a lot about, although I was here in the 90s for that, whatever else, and then other times over the years. And then I thought to one of my best friends in high school lives right up the hill from Asheville, North Carolina, and 40 inches of rain in a short amount of time, I mean, washed entire hillsides away. And I thought to myself, one thing is, you're without house and happy home immediately, but what do you do for people when you're truly on your own? Because you can't call 911 and have them come up the hill in the ambulance. There is no road. What are you going to do? I mean, when people need you and communities need each other, or you're on the side of the road, yes, you want to call 911 and do the best you can, but they may not get there quickly. I mean, we live in a rural state. There's a lot of wide open spaces, or maybe they just can't come, and it's up to you. And I thought about that for a long time, Lance. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have to try and be mentally prepared to have those tools. And then, as we're discussing, the wherewithal to go down through and use them properly.
I think that it's very important to know what you're willing to do in order to help a stranger before the events happen also. So, are you willing to pull over to the side of the road and help somebody who's stranded? Are you willing to get out of the car and go help somebody that you've just seen get into a car accident and be the first one there, not knowing what it is that you're going to see when you walk up? Yeah. I think that making those decisions beforehand, or at least contemplating how is it that I will approach this situation, I think that those also help with you being mentally prepared for what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do.
Agreed. I don't think that people understand that, or a lot of people don't. The mental preparation precedes everything that comes after. And I want people physically trained. I want them to go through the motions. I want them to practice whatever this art is, or whatever this medium may be. But it starts up here in your noggin, and you have to do that. And I would argue that if you're mentally prepared, you're way ahead of most people, way ahead. Yeah. So it begins there. All right. Anything else?
No, thank you very much for your time.
I'm glad you came. Thank you for your time, sharing a little bit of the experience there. Anybody listening to this or watching this, if you haven't dealt with this yet, you probably will. Odds are, if you're out traveling around, you're going to see some things where you could probably be helpful, or maybe you should be. And this is the difference between maybe standing there on your cell phone and relaying information and actually helping save a life. So bring that to bear and make good decisions. Again, thanks everybody out there. Join Iowa Firearms Coalition. That's iowafc.org, and we appreciate it. Lance, thank you.
Thank you.